up until several years ago, they thought the giant squid out of Japan, off the coast of Japan, was, giant squid was a cryptid. It was mythological. Over time had reported these creatures, that can engulf ships and the Kraken and things like that. And,
watching that thing disappear.
Yes.
It was almost like a straight line. It was like it went behind a straight line and it was gone. Just completely gone.
And it did. It was like it slipped into it went into a house or something. It just all of a sudden it just went
like it went behind a wall.
Like it went behind a wall. That's where people start to ask the question, is it possible that there are some sort, and I know this is a stretch, but is it possible that they could be going into some sort of a portal or interdimensional being that can move into, thank you very much, Vesta, stepping into another place, for lack of a better word? All right. Hey, welcome to JFree906 and Mission Bigfoot and the Cryptid Phenomenon. Hey, we got John Edwards and Mike Owen again. Welcome, guys. Thanks for coming.
Hey.
Thank you.
Going to be my two regular co-hosts on this because I'm not the expert. As I mentioned last week, I'm still kind of a skeptic on the whole Bigfoot thing. But I tell you what, and again, as I said last week, this particular phenomenon, this cryptid, this particular one, there are just too many eyewitness reports to completely dismiss this. And there's just too much evidence. We don't have any proof yet. There's just too much evidence. What do you guys think about that?
Yeah, I think I was kind of taken aback once I kind of got into it a little bit. Just how much evidence there really was. And again, if you're looking at it from a distance, there's casts of footprints and there's eyewitness accounts and things like that. It wasn't until I started to listen to the people that were experts in their fields,
right? Yeah,
dermal ridges and anatomy of the foot and things like that. Plus those eyewitness accounts, which I know to some extent eyewitness accounts aren't 100% accurate, but boy, these folks have been absolutely traumatized for the most part. There's folks that have hunted their whole lives, never gone back to the woods ever after their experience. So
so
there's more there than I realized, and it's a lot to wade through. It's another rabbit hole to go down.
Yeah, it is. And there's a particular guy tonight that was on. We're going to be talking tonight, folks, about season 3, episode number 1, which was called Strange Beginnings. Or Returns, Strange Returns. Sorry, yeah, Strange Returns. And it's kind of a setup for season 3 when the guys are returning out to the Olympic Peninsula in Washington, right?
Yep.
And they got run out of there. I mean, I was trying to go back. I'm trying to finish watching, rewatch all these seasons, but I guess they went back in season 2 to the. They were there once before, and then they went back in season 2, right?
Yeah. Yeah, they were. I think they were originally in Oregon in season 1, and then they were in the Pacific Peninsula, and because of forest fires, they were evacuated and had to leave.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and so now, and they had really found some really cool stuff when they were there. Actually, the first 2 times, I think, and now they've returning, and they're able to now pull some of that. Back with them as they are now to go back into season 3, return to this place and really dive into that because they knew that was such a great hotspot and they had so much good evidence before. So,
hey, Judy,
to give it a shout out. Go ahead. What's that?
I said, hey, Judy.
I wanted to give a shout out to some of the folks here. I'm scrolling to get back to. Oh, there we go. So Paula, always number 1. Yay, Paula and Curtis Bennett. Sand Dollar Ray, how you doing? Jeff's in the house. And I gotta say too, Wade, Christy, the Discord channel. You guys that are regulars here, you know all about my Discord channel that I have. I really enjoy. I started this Discord channel up, and it has 3 different areas in there. It's got the Skinwalker Ranch chat, voice and text chat. It's got the Curse of Oak Island, of course. And then it also has this one for Beyond Our World. And I got a really good suggestion, John, from Linda. And Linda was saying that when people go out and they're searching Facebook for Bigfoot, they're not finding our Beyond Our World. It doesn't say anything about Bigfoot on it. So we're have to think about how we want to maybe change that up a little bit and I don't know what we can do with the naming of it, but we got to figure out what we can do there so it help people find it. But it's Beyond Our World is the Facebook page that we're using for this particular genre, talking about Bigfoot. So but the Discord channel is a lot of fun. It's free for everybody. It doesn't cost a thing. You can join it. And we get into some pretty wild discussions. And I tell you what, the family of people that's in there already, I just love these guys because we get into some great stuff. They're in there now talking about, I have it up on the screen over here, kind of watching what everybody's saying. It's really a lot of fun. And also do a little housekeeping here. I just wanted to say, please click and subscribe to the channel here. It does help us out a lot. If you are already have that capability to subscribe, please do. And if you like the content of our show, even just a little bit, give us a thumbs up because that helps out with the YouTube algorithms and gets the show out to more people. So we really appreciate that. If you like to help, well, you're not, Jeff. that, Robert. And if you'd like to help support the show, we do have a Patreon channel. It's patreon.com. And of course, it's JFree906 there. And we have these really cool little mugs here too. It's JFree906 tumblers, travel mugs, whatever you want to call it. And there's a link below in the description of the show below for the Beyond Our World and also for the mugs. If you click on that, it'll take you right to them. You can find them there. So yeah, good stuff. There. Sorry about that, but I had to go through the housekeeping. But
Jeff, before we get started, can I throw out a question real quick?
Sure, why not?
Yeah. Mike, just before we get started with this, there's been 2 questions already, and I'm just going to ask it this way. Is Dogman the same as Bigfoot, the same as Wendigo, the same as Sasquatch? Because 2 people are kind of asking that, and now can you differentiate?
That's a good question.
It's a great question.
Yeah. So Bigfoot and Sasquatch are one and the same. The Bigfoot term was coined in 1956, also in Bluff Creek, where in 1967 the Patterson-Gimlin film originated from. And Sasquatch is a Native American term, and I don't know that was a perfect translation or a perfect pronunciation, but that's essentially how it came out and what it's been known as. So Dogman is essentially a werewolf, although Dogman specifically, the reason it's called Dogman and not a werewolf is there's no indication that it's someone changing into a werewolf, a human, and back and forth. Dogman just seems to appear and then is gone. So in my mind, they're definitely different. But there's also some commonalities between all of those that, you could throw in Skinwalker in there. And if it's a shapeshifter, it could all be related. That's could be anything. So I just try to keep an open mind and listen to all the information and rack and stack it, in my head and kind of add it to my mental database.
Yeah, while we're talking about Dogman too, real quick, I wanted to mention that I have a friend of mine. Actually, John's been talking to him quite a bit too. Christian Roper, who is a guy who is doing some treasure hunting, but he's also got a lot of information about Bigfoot. He has his own experiences, and he's working with a team of guys that have a YouTube channel called The Confessionals. The Confessionals. And if you go out there, and they did went out in the woods and did an investigation over the course of a few days, like the Expedition Bigfoot people have. And they did this out in Kentucky. I believe it was in Kentucky. And they were doing the whole thing on Dogman. So it's called The Confessionals. You can go out there and check those guys out. They got a pretty good thing going out there. And at some point, I'll be doing some field work and doing some camera. I'm going to capture some stuff, doing some of my own field work. If I can drag John out in the woods or Mike Owen, we get them guys out in the woods too at some point. You might see us doing our own investigations. I don't have a ghillie suit, but I mean, Oh yeah, you got Yeti too. Yeah. Yeti. Ellen brought up Yeti. Yeti's another one
Yeah.
that. What do they call the one over in like Japan, over in the Orient?
Oh boy, it's all over the world. Every part of the world has a different name, and even within the United States, there's different names that they go by. But as and for the most part, I think it's trying to describe the same thing. To me, again, I guess I don't know. I wouldn't differentiate between Yeti, Sasquatch, Bigfoot. It's just a different region, but essentially the same type of creature. So yeah.
Yep, I agree. Same thing. Pretty much the same. And it was really a cool thing that, don't forget Skunk Ape. Yeah.
Yep.
Barbara
Another name. Yep.
So over on Facebook. Let's see. So I'm gonna get back. Hey, Cat's here. Eva. I saw Eva pop in, and I got William. Some of the guys that the folks from our Discord, Dina, Christy, Claudia, Mary. Hi guys. I'm glad you're here tonight. Really do appreciate your popping in. And don't forget, you can always bring up your questions, like John's been popping up your questions here, and we're going to try to keep going with that as much as we can. The questions and the input last week were phenomenal. You guys did such an awesome job with that.
Outstanding.
So cool. Really, really appreciate that. Let's see here. Man, you got so much chat already. I'm getting Andrew's here, Judy's here. Vesta, yeah, Vesta, I got you in the intro. How'd you like that new intro? Was that okay? I made a new intro video. I put that together earlier in the week. Just trying to get something a little bit more in tune with what we're doing here. I got all done with it. And when I finished up with it, and then I realized I didn't put anything in there about the paranormal. So no. And that's something, Vesta, I'm glad you brought that up, because I wanted to qualify that real quick. And, like I said, I'm a skeptic on Bigfoot, but I want to investigate this as much as I can. The thing that I have about that is I have never seen anything that I could say, wow, was that maybe a Bigfoot? Nothing. No sounds, no visuals. I've got nothing. Now, you take UFOs. Yes, I have some UFO experiences. And I also have some paranormal experiences. But when it comes to Bigfoot or Sasquatch or Cryptid, nothing. I got nothing. But I'm open-minded and I want to learn, and that's what we're doing here. So
I'd love to go out in the field. I want to be clear. I am a armchair researcher. I have not done any research on my own, other out in the field type of thing. We camp and stuff like that, but nothing that would ever be considered actual field research for Bigfoot or in any way, shape, or form. I just collect data in my head.
Yeah, things that go bump in the night. Speaking of going bump in the night, you had a little comment about that too, didn't you, Mike? About with Travis and whatnot in Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah, if there's any insiders here, I'm sure that they have heard certain things mentioned, certain experiences that have happened on Skinwalker Ranch that are often reported in Bigfoot experiences. One of those things is the thumping or banging or striking of a camper. In this case, it was Dr. Taylor, who was very honest about the fact that pretty much through the entire season 3, he almost every night about the same time, something would bang on his camper and the cameras couldn't catch anything. He couldn't catch it. There's other experiences like that as well that, that again, as you hear them talk about things, it kind of ticks a box in my head that is one of the columns I've got for Bigfoot and Bigfoot encounters. There's definitely some activity there. And I know that there's crossover, and some folks may say, well, the banging on the house could be paranormal. Absolutely. I'm just saying it definitely comes up in Bigfoot in habitual circumstance where somebody they have a Bigfoot on their property, and a habituation where the Bigfoot comes back time and time again. Striking of the house or banging on a structure happens all the time.
Right. Yep. Or throwing rocks at you.
Yes, throwing rocks. That's one thing that folks report very, very often is when they're out, that things will start getting thrown at them, or dropping near them, and then suddenly they realize that it's happening too frequently to
Okay.
just be things falling from above. And Eric has mentioned that when he and Thomas were driving around in the Jeep, little rocks kept landing on the Jeep, and they couldn't figure out where it was coming from. And we talked about last time the voices that are just past where you can hear what someone is saying, but you can hear voices checking on it, and there's nothing there. So,
yeah, interesting stuff. Yeah, and for those of
Skinwalker's
you,
got it
the
all.
insiders, we are Mike and I. Well, John, he's an insider too. All of us are insiders over at Skinwalker Ranch, and there's a link for that down below in the description. If you would like to check it out to be an insider, we get access to the guys and to the ranch and to the 24/7 cameras that are up and everything. We get access to this to Skinwalker Ranch that is unparalleled in any television show, reality TV show, or anything like that is out there today. They are setting the new standard or the new thing for this, and it is fantastic. I absolutely love being an insider. They got the spreadsheet, they got their own Discord channel, they got sightings. I caught what I think is a UFO on there, and it's been recorded and looked at. It's just great. It's a lot of fun. And it's so much information, and they actually have a Q&A tonight at 10 o'clock. There's a Q&A tonight going on over there. So when I'm done here and I get everything wrapped up, I'm going to be popping over there to watch the Q&A. And I forget who all's going to be there. I think the whole team, or pretty much everybody's going to be there. I'm not.
Yeah, that's what it
I
looked
didn't
like.
catch that, but yeah. So a Q&A with all of them, and we all get to watch it, being an insider, and ask questions and all that. It's a great time. It really is. But there's a link down below. You can jump in there and get that link, and it'll take you right over there to the free trial. It does cost, but there's a free trial, 14-day free trial. You can check it out and see if you like it. But you will not be disappointed if you're into, Skinwalker Ranch and that whole thing. So a lot of great stuff over there too. So, was it postponed? Oh, I did not know that. It was postponed until tomorrow night due to weather. Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Guess that must have just happened. I didn't catch that. Barbara Mora, yeah, you mentioned it too. Okay, so take that, scratch that. Tomorrow night, probably at 10 o'clock again, it'll be on. So good. Well, we'll get to see it then. Friday night. So, what I got going on? So, all right. So let's jump into this one. This is going to be, like I said, season 3, episode number 1, Strange Returns. And let me get my wonderful pictures going here that everybody loves so much. At least I do. Anyway, I like the pictures. But all right. So, whoops. I guess I got to present. I got somehow or another I messed that up. Let's see. Here we go. All right. So Expedition Bigfoot. And this one, like I said, Strange Returns. And I'm going to run through in case any of you don't know, which I'm sure all of you do if you watch this show at all. You got the cast members of the show. You got Bryce Johnson, Expedition Operations. You got Dr. Maria Mayer, primatologist, and Russell Accord, ex-military and survivalist. That guy is something else. We'll talk about that later. I've gotten to have breakfast with him before. He's really cool. And then you have Ronnie LeBlanc. Ronnie is part of that. And, it's one of those things that these guys, Ronnie has a tendency to jump to the Bigfoot conclusion. And it's kind of funny if you watch the interaction between him and Maria Mayer when they're together. Maria will point something out, and then Ronnie's like, "Oh, yeah, Bigfoot on that." And she's like,
yeah, she'll roll her eyes. Yeah.
So it's kind of fun to watch that, but it's good to have somebody on there that's a little bit, hold up a minute, there could be a different explanation for this. So, but that's good, Yep. But last time that they were there, when they were in the Olympic Peninsula in Washington, they did, this is a print that they had found last time. It was a massive footprint, and they didn't have a measurement on this one that I remember, unless it's this picture here. But this one here was nearly 16 inches on the footprint.
Wow.
So that's a pretty good size barefoot print on the ground. So they did have some stuff that they found, and they wanted to get back over there and get another look at them this season.
Jeff, can we go back to the footprint? The first
Yeah.
footprint. You can see toes and the heel, and you can see an arch.
Yeah.
Kind of remarkable.
Yeah,
So
it
it's
is
definitely
truly.
something that's 2 legs.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah, that's a good print right there. Absolutely.
great
And they got a
print.
new thing now that they're using. It's a scanner.
Scanner.
Yeah,
Wow.
rather
3D
than
scanner.
doing a casting. What's that scanner again? Do you know what that
It's
was, Mike?
just a 3D scanner. So it's just shining light and taking lots of pictures. It's like almost like photogrammetry, where it's taking many different pictures. As that light flashes, you'll see Maria kind of holding it over and getting different angles, and it just builds a virtual picture in 3 dimensions that you can then look at later and save electronically. So,
Question from Mike. Mike, the way that footprint imprints, it's heel, arch, and you can see the push off.
Yep.
What kind of creature to make that? Is it
so yeah, that footprints are obviously that's Dr. Meldrum's expertise for sure, and he's very clear that these footprints, you got to keep in mind, that's a recording over time. It's not a straight up and down impression and coming back up.
Right.
It's heel in, and so
roll? Yeah.
What I would normally do, not knowing any better, I would look for these. I would look for the pristine ones. But Dr. Meldrum, that's not what he wants. He wants the ones that aren't pristine because it shows motion better in the foot.
Yep.
The other thing that's unique to Bigfoot, so there's several things that are unique in this Bigfoot, right? Is that they walk almost in a straight line. They walk like they're on a tightrope.
Behind the other.
Yeah, one behind the other, like they're on a game trail.
Yep.
That's part of why, as people have done their different analysis of the Patterson-Gimlin film, they have trouble recreating that because she's doing something odd with her legs, and it's because she's walking in a straight line. And then, of course, there's the mid-tarsal break. And so I'm starting to use medical body terms that I'm not really good at. But the mid-tarsal break is key, and that's what Meldrum is saying. That is what clearly differentiates Bigfoot tracks from human tracks. And essentially what that is the human foot, and I don't have a diagram or something to show, but the heel is attached to the arch and it's rigid there. And then we have the arch and then the ball of the foot. That part where the arch attaches to the heel on Bigfoot is flexible. It can move. We can't move our heel and the arch of our foot separately. They're attached. So that makes a very distinct and different footprint than a human can manage. So even if that's why I think at one point he looks at one of the casts and he says, even if there was someone with a 15-inch or 16-inch foot, there's so few of them that they're not going to be out wandering around in these woods and making these
barefoot.
decisions. Right, barefoot. And then even if they were, their foot anatomy can't physically make this track. So
what's the difference between
the difference is
impression wise?
The ridge where we would see what we would call our arch, that actually sits further back in the footprint, closer to the heel, because the foot stays flatter. More of the foot stays on the ground as they go forward, and their heel starts to come up. From the heel forward, basically stays almost intact on the ground, in contact with the ground. And so the ridge that gets built up, you can kind of see there where it looks like an arch. That ridge doesn't sit where a human track would make it. It sits further back.
Wow. Okay.
And then, add into that the bone structure, which he can identify a lot better than I can because he's a PhD and I'm not. So, there's that's why, like I said at the beginning, there's so much more information that I wasn't aware of, to a level of detail that experts see and realize, oh my gosh, there's no one that would know how to fake this. This is actually real. Something made this. That's a living creature. That's where I got really interested. I'm like, okay, there's some real science here. There's some real interesting stuff.
Yeah, there's absolutely no doubt about that for sure. And this is something here. This question here is from April. Do you think the Bigfoot could be from another dimension since it's so elusive and yet everywhere on Earth? And I don't know. I mean, it's we
Right.
talked about that a little bit. You saw it in the and that's something I had in the intro video that I made about how they simply just disappear and things. We were talking about this in pre-show. Les Stroud talked about this particular thing too, is that things will appear or disappear without well, let me put it this way, like rocks being thrown in an area where you should be able to see somebody standing there, but yet you can't. And yet
Mm,
who's throwing the rocks?
mm,
Or Les Stroud had the thing. Talk about that one real quick. You saw on
Yeah. Yeah.
Survivor Man. He did his
Yeah,
Bigfoot.
Survivor Man Bigfoot. On that episode, or in one of the episodes in Survivor Man Bigfoot with Les Stroud, uh, they baited and put out some apples and some other stuff, and put some cameras on it, and um, they show in the show, you see that apple disappear like that, and it looks like it's been edited. It looks like he did something to the video. He stopped it. They removed the apple and started again.
Right.
He said that is absolutely not the case. He said that is live or filmed live. That
Mhm.
apple vanished in an absolute instant. And you watch it on his show. It
Right.
really, really tough to explain if that's what happened. Why did it blink out of existence in an instant? There was no hand grab. It wasn't like something was too fast to be seen by the camera. It just pops out, gone.
Yep. And so how could something like that possibly happen? Knowing that it wasn't edited, or at least they're claiming it
What
was
he's
not
saying. Yep.
edited that way, but yet it disappeared. Does that mean that they were able to stay in the cloaking and snatch it off of there without coming out of that cloak? I don't know. I mean, it's one of those. It's again one of those
Yep.
strange questions that you just simply can't come up with a definitive answer for. It's just
mm.
too crazy. Hey, Skinwalker Ranch is in the chat. Hey, how you guys doing? Appreciate you stopping by tonight. We were talking about Skinwalker Ranch, and I was mistaken about the Q&A tonight. I thought it was tonight, but it's not. It's been postponed due to weather. So, but yeah. So again, you got one of those things like that, and you go back to the banging on Dr. Travis's trailer
Mhm.
that no camera was able to pick anything up.
Right.
And there's cameras all over that ranch.
Right.
I mean, we watch it, and yet it was not picked up on any camera. Again, that's just one of those questions that you just can't come up with a definitive answer for.
Yeah, that's why I said my thought is that our definition of cloaked may have to change.
Yeah. So, all right. So the guys, the team is returning back over to Washington State in the Olympic Peninsula. Beautiful area. Oh my
Mm.
gosh, this is just so beautiful. I lived I worked in Portland, and I lived actually in Vancouver, Washington, for a couple of years. And I noticed that when the rain starts in the fall, it rains all winter long, and then it stops in the late spring, early summer, and then it hardly rains at all during the summer. But these lush green forest, it's just beautiful out here. It's such a wonderful place. It truly is. And now this particular episode, they went out and they did something kind of unique. There was a team of researchers who went out many, many years ago, and they took primate pheromone and sprayed it on these little tags, these little cards, and they hung them in trees in different areas around, trying to stimulate some sort of, hoping that the primate pheromone would be something that would be picked up by a Bigfoot. Now, usually pheromones are interspecies; they stay within the species. Humans have pheromones. All these different animals have pheromones, but generally they stay within the species, and so another species couldn't pick up on it. So they're making an assumption here that a primate pheromone would be picked up by another primate, such as Bigfoot. So they put that scent on these cards, put them all around, and seen what happened. And we got a good story of what happened from that episode they had, and go ahead for that one because we were just talking about this in the pre-show, Mike.
Yeah. So related to the pheromones, and in this episode, they referenced the Skookum cast that was
Yes.
made, and the fact that the pheromones that they were using were the same pheromones that were used to when that was found. So this was a, if folks aren't familiar with the Skookum cast, it's Skookum. September of 2000, BFRO did an investigation. They were going out and doing some baiting and things like that. This was the same pheromone that they used, and essentially the impression that they got a lot more than just footprints. The bait was on the ground, and it was in a soft, sort of not quite super muddy, but soft ground area. And a Sasquatch, Bigfoot, basically sat down on the ground and leaned over so that it could reach out and grab some of the food. And that impression then was cast with a lot of plaster of Paris, and has been studied since by countless experts. It had pretty good, strong heel impression with the Achilles tendon included. That was studied by a number of scientists. One that was particularly good at identifying elk. It was not an elk elbow. And then obviously there were arm impressions. Even the hair got pressed into the soft ground.
The hair.
Yeah. And buttocks, nice butt print. That was nice of the Sasquatch to leave. So very, very interesting. Again, not something I would have probably walked right by it. I would have been looking for all those pristine footprints that really don't actually tell you as much as maybe something like that does. I mean, they saw much more anatomy in the Skookum cast than they would from just a perfectly impressed footprint. So.
Yep. So yeah, and that's a really good story. So there you go with this pheromone. So they this is their target area in this picture right here, in this peninsula, and there's an old train or an old trestle that going across right there, and that's where they found those footprints, was right here in this area. And then you got Maria and Ronnie spread out. Russell's up on a hillside. They're overlooking this clearing down here. And there's Russell right off the bat. That's him in a ghillie suit right here. If you can't notice that. And he said, even during the show, he said that it wasn't perfect match, but he said the colors were pretty darn close. And they are. They're pretty darn close. A little bit lighter or darker than some of the surrounding vegetation, but hides them pretty well. This is him again on the hillside as he was getting set up, as they were getting ready to spray the pheromone, and they were doing this through a you can buy this stuff in a gallon jug. No,
who knew?
Yeah, it does say drinking water on the side of that, but I wouldn't be drinking that, of course. But anyway, yeah, who knew you could buy that in a gallon jug? You can pick it up at Walmart. Okay. I just saw your message there. All right. So they were filling this up, and this is in a agricultural spraying drone that they were using here, and they were putting it in, loading up the tank on this thing. And there it is out there in action. It's out there spraying. They could cover about a 2 square mile area with this thing, with what they had in it. There's another shot of it going over the trees and spraying this stuff down. And of course, when you do something like this, you're never absolutely sure what you're going to get. If you do get a Bigfoot, is he going to be mad, or is he going to be interested? Is he going to be, I don't know. You don't know what kind of emotion you are going to strike from that particular animal. Deer hunters like to take deer scent and use it to draw a buck in, because a buck will get very aggressive against another buck. So if you put buck scent on you and another buck picks it up, he's going to come into the area looking for the other buck that's in his territory, right? So,
Yeah,
and
and
there's
I think
actually a video of a guy that got attacked by a buck. He had the scent on his body, and he got attacked by another buck. Was beating the crap out of the guy, and his wife is just filming, going, "Oh no, oh no!"
yeah,
Anyway,
I think because they didn't know what that was going to do. Dr. Maria seemed reluctant.
yeah,
She seemed like she wasn't overly happy with this tactic because they didn't know what they were going to do. Like you said, it could cause some aggressive behavior that they didn't necessarily want. It may draw them in, but you may regret doing it. So
mm-hmm.
definitely
Exactly.
you got to keep in mind that you're dealing with something that's that's 2 or 3 times our size.
Yeah, exactly. A heck of a lot stronger, faster. It's like the Bionic Man of could crush you like a bug. Snap you in two, type of thing. So yeah, yeah, it would be a good question for and when we get her on the show, she did say she would come on my show. I haven't set that up yet, but she did say she would come on the show with Ronnie. So that's one of the questions we'll have to make sure we ask. It's kind of funny. We were talking about the banging on houses and banging on trees, and Tom said there's no such thing as knock knock jokes in the Bigfoot world. And one of my favorite lines, from a movie, and this is what you spray out this pheromone stuff, and then you get when you if you are confronted by a Bigfoot, you get to see one.
Oh yeah, that's how it always starts. But then later there's running and screaming.
Yep.
That's one of my favorite lines from a movie. That's actually from Jurassic Park. But all right, so that first night, they didn't really get anything. They did get a little bit of sounds. They heard some sounds. They heard a lot of footsteps, cracking of branches, things like that. And then there was an odd. I think Bryce was going down a trail, and he did see a deer fawn. And he saw it. He saw the eye shine from it and everything. And then, so he kind of, it scared him at first because he saw the movement of a little tree and all this kind of stuff. And then he saw the eye shine. Then he actually saw the fawn. But then later on, shortly thereafter, we heard it sounded like an animal that was in distress, screaming. And that was pretty freaky. And he scared that one up. Did he scare the one up and it ran over and it got attacked by those wolves or whatever? I don't know. But
Yeah.
But that was pretty much the extent of the first night investigation. They didn't really get anything else, but they did get that, and it was pretty interesting. But yeah, that was a weird sound, wasn't it? I mean,
It was that. I mean,
very disturbing sound.
Yeah, some of those sounds. I would love to get them into the spectrogram and analyze those. I know there's a lot of folks that do that too. Alan asked a good question about did they find any upside down trees? They have not found any upside down trees, but in Survivor Man Bigfoot, Les Stroud, they do find upside down trees. It's along the lines of tree structures, things like that. It's one of the things that can be found, and it's usually a dead tree, and it's just picked up and shoved down into the ground with the roots sticking straight up in the air, which would be some of them are the size that would be very difficult for someone to do on their own.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And we talked a little bit about that before, about some of the tree breaks where they'll make some sort of a structure with trees, but a lot of times they'll break the tree off 8 feet in the air.
Yeah. Wow.
How does that happen? It wasn't from a windstorm or anything like that, because it's all the other trees around are fine, but there's a few of them broken off 6 feet in the air.
Yep.
And yeah. something very big reached up, grabbed it, and snapped it off, and then was using the branches for something else. Yeah, William, I am too. I am excited about season 4. I think season 3 was probably one of the best ones this far. That's why we're going to kind of go through it, leading us up to season 4. And then when season 4 comes out, we're going to talk about every episode right after it happens. I think they're on Sunday nights, and we're going to be talking about them on Thursdays right here at 7:30. So we're really looking forward to that, and hopefully we can get Russell and Maria and Ronnie and maybe even Bryce to come on the show here with us and kind of take us, talk about the past seasons. Of course, they won't be able to say anything about season 4, which was filmed. I guess they're up in Alaska, or were up in Alaska last summer doing that one. So it's going to be a good one. I'm really excited about it. So the next day, they kind of regrouped and got their stuff together to begin the next day's investigation. And that's one of the things that I really like about Expedition Bigfoot. A little bit different than some of the other type shows that are out there where they go out and they spend one night or 2 nights doing something. They go out and they spend a few weeks out doing these investigations and show us what's happening over that long period of time, which I think is the right way to do it. You can't go out in the woods and expect to see something in 1 night or 2 nights. You might get lucky, but chances are you're not going to get the evidence you're looking for in 1 or 2 nights. You have to stay out there for several, for a couple of weeks, which is the way they do this. And I really like that. I think that's the right format to use. Wouldn't you guys agree on that?
Yeah, I think they're out there for 2 or 3 weeks at a time.
Yeah,
it's a lengthy period of time, so that gives them a lot more time to collect information, try different things,
and change your tactics. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, right. Change it up. If one thing isn't working, they can always go to something else.
Like I want to throw something out the mic real quick. Debris fields and upside down trees. Can you map these? Is it consistent? Is there a pattern to upside down trees and debris and foliage breaking?
Yeah, I would love to see a map. That would be awesome. A fantastic way to see.
That would be
if there was some sort of correlation. I mean, that's what you got to do with data.
Yes.
Is collect it all, look for trends, look for patterns, look for commonality, and see what it might mean. To my knowledge, there isn't anything that I know of where they have done that. But it would be good, even anything, tree structures, anything like that, even the stuff that they find on Expedition Bigfoot. It would be great to put a GPS marker and see if there's anything shows up in the data. Does it make sense?
We're gonna have to do that when we get out.
Yeah. Yes.
When I drag, what state are you in, Mike?
Iowa,
yeah. See, okay, we'll get you out there.
That's
John,
that's why we leave to go camping someplace.
Yeah. John, when we're up in Nova Scotia, we'll have to do a little looking up there too.
Yeah, why not?
We'll get together with Tom Burns. We'll go out to the camp.
Absolutely.
Tom's got his camp over in New Brunswick, so we're gonna have to go up there and check that out, see what kind of stuff is up in Canada. So let's see. Have you heard of the Olympic Project? No, I have not. Go to the Ozarks. Okay. Interesting. So the next night they decide to change it up a little bit. They looked at some data. Bryce is kind of like the data guy. So they got some data together and they kind of narrowed their search field down a little bit. And they decided on the next day to move and go down. And here they're going over and they're looking in down this river. And you see them using their it's a different kind of a kayak that they've got here that they're using to get along. What's that? Inflatable kayaks, yeah, that they're using to move along here. Really, again, beautiful scenery, but it allows them to go into a little bit shallower waters too, I think. And then you see this here. You got this cliff all on one side. What's that?
You're not sharing the picture.
Oh! You're right. I'm sorry.
You want to see the beautiful scenery?
I'm looking at beautiful stuff, and you guys can't.
I know
see
you are. You got to share, Jeff.
I see why I need you. I need you guys so bad for that. Yeah, here we go with this beautiful scenery as they're going along. You got the cliff on one side, And then, where the animals can actually come up on the far side, over here on the right side, they can actually access to come down and feed. This is an area where you're going to find the most of your animal traffic in a woods is near a source of water and food or whatever, but a source of water for sure. So you're
Yeah,
going to see a lot of activity. Go ahead.
they're always around water, and that's one thing that is known, is that Bigfoot actually are often found near water. Primates in general, they do not like water. They don't swim. Bigfoot is known to swim, and is very, very often near water source.
Yep. It's really cool, this area, this spot here. They decided to go ahead and set up camp in this area for that night's investigation. Russell returns back to the edge of the spot where he was the night before, when he was in the ghillie suit with his cameraman there. And now he's setting up a blind. He's going to actually dig in and he creates a blind. And I thought it was really interesting. He was talking about a particular, this piece of material that he's using here. Not only is it kind of a vinyl material to protect from rain and the elements and all that, but he said it is also, and I don't know, it must be coated with something on the back side, but it also will keep any electronic emissions from getting outside of it, because there's a couple of thoughts on this, where a Bigfoot type creature could see like infrared, or it might be able to pick up on electronic emissions. So they got this particular material that he's going to put over top of them, because he's going to have electronics in there, obviously, that he's using, and he doesn't want that to come out. Do you know much? Is either John or Mike, is that something that is this was really the first I heard. I've heard about the infrared, but not the electronic emissions.
Yeah. So folks know about trail cams, and people talk about, well, you just fill the woods with them. Trail cams almost never catch Bigfoot. In fact, they're so good at not catching Bigfoot that they're recommended in habituation circumstance, where a Bigfoot's constantly coming and stealing chickens or hanging on the house or something. You put up security cameras, you put up trail cams, and suddenly they're gone. They're never back again. And again, the Patterson-Gimlin film was in 1967, October 20th, 1967. They had no electronics. The movie camera, the film camera they were using was actual film, physical film, and it was spring loaded. No electronics of any kind, no batteries, nothing. So, people often ask, well, why were they so successful? Why can't we? Everybody's got a cell phone. Well, there's the theory, is that somehow they can either sense electronics and avoid it, or they can. I think there's definitely good evidence towards them being able to see into some level of infrared.
Yep, I agree. Yeah, so that makes it. They need to put the trail cams upside down from a high branch. What if they can see that light though? It'd be like a street light shining down if they can actually see it. So I don't know. It's one of those things where, you want to use the electronics to try to capture something, but then on the other hand, they might be keeping you from having any kind of an encounter.
Yeah. Even the Sierra sounds that I think folks should probably, if you know anything about Bigfoot, you know what the Sierra sounds are. Those recordings were made with a microphone that was 40 feet from the recorder. So, they put a little bit of distance between where the microphone was and where it was a cassette recorder, so nothing too fancy, but at least they distanced it. And again, if that was that easy, why hasn't anybody else done that since? With a cell phone, I mean, you can capture lots of things with your cell phone because everybody's got one. I think that's one of the reasons those Sierra sounds are so much better and clearer because they were closer to the source.
Mike, I got a question.
Sure.
If we're saying that the Sasquatch creatures supposedly can sense these things. Is their intelligence equal to or greater than our own? I mean, are they?
That's a great question.
Primates, or are they below in the evolutionary chain, equal to, or are they actually more advanced than we are?
Before you answer that, I'm going to add this with it.
Okay.
We want to believe that they're dumb animals. And if they were a dumb animal, we'd spotted them by now.
Correct.
I think. Go ahead.
Yeah, yes.
Go ahead, Mike.
Yep. Yeah. No, that's they're obviously highly intelligent because they haven't been found. They clearly, if they don't want to be found, you're not going to find them. There's a lot of behavior that you hear. They know what a gun is. They react to a gun the same way you and I would react to a gun. If they see someone with a gun, holstered on their hip, you see the person reach for it, they react exactly the same way we would. They know what guns are. They know what they can do. They know that they can do harm. There was a story of a hunter who again was holding a rifle and turned. He didn't aim the rifle at the Sasquatch, but he turned so that the gun was at least all he had to do was raise it up, and it was a adult Sasquatch with a young one. And when he turned the gun towards them, the adult Sasquatch put their hand down to protect their child. So clearly, level of intelligence. I mean, like I said, if they know or have the ability to cloak, clearly they know more than we do in that area. I think it's just a matter of we have aligned ourselves with electronics and that type of technology, where maybe they aligned with a different type of quote unquote technology, something we might not necessarily recognize immediately as a technology, but it's a capability that we don't certainly have, that they're able to do. So.
Yep. And that's what Jan was saying here, that she thinks that they are equal to, because look how long they have eluded us. They know what our next move is going to be. Yep. If and again, I go back to this thing. If Bigfoot exists, I would think that it's a highly intelligent creature. Otherwise, like I said, we've seen them by now. We would have found them. They wouldn't be smart enough to keep eluding capture or evidence of some sort. So yeah, that makes the cloaking again. Now you really got to add in a lot of intelligence, or a means by which to be able to hide themselves, like Predator, in the movie. I don't know. I mean, I don't know.
And are we talking cloaking or are we talking camouflage? Because the octopus can camouflage both texture and color.
Yeah.
I've seen footage
and heat signature.
And heat signature. So what are we saying here? If you have, is that innate to the creature, or is that a intelligibility, or what is it that would let such a creature cloak or camouflage like that? Innate's one thing. Technology or intelligibility or intelligence is whole different matter. And what would cause that? I mean, why are they so elusive? Why, if they exist, can we not find one?
There you go, right there.
That's got the octopus.
Yeah, the octopus can cloak and change texture and color.
So, I mean, my question is, if something like the octopus can do that, why could a mammal, in Mike's opinion or Jeff's opinion, could a mammal also have such capabilities?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, we have to be open to anything, right? I mean, it's clearly able to elude us at will. So it has some capability that we don't yet understand, and we just got to keep an open mind. And again, that's why folks have already asked about the interdimensional thing. We're just learning, more about quantum mechanics, quantum physics, quantum entanglement.
Correct.
Who's to say that they didn't naturally have abilities that we haven't even discovered yet, or haven't learned about scientifically, how that type of stuff even works. So, to me, they're highly, highly intelligent, just maybe in a different way than we would normally expect.
Agreed.
Yeah, Jennifer brought up a good point right there. We assume they are a mammal.
Yeah,
That's
right.
correct. That was an assumption.
That
You know?
is an assumption. And they're talking about different races, and that's where that right there, Barbara, and I think that what might lead to where you have the difference between the Yeti and the skunk ape and the ones overseas, in Japan and that have a reddish hair. So different races of them. Yeah, I mean, if they truly exist, and again, I keep saying truly exist, if they truly exist. But again, when you go and you take all the sightings worldwide and through so many generations going back, that's the part that just astounds me. Are all of them wrong? All these people wrong? Are they
And,
all seeing things?
and Jeff, the stories are handed down through generations of indigenous people
Yeah, I know.
throughout
And
the world. So it's just not isolated.
that's the part that just blows my mind. It's like they can't all be wrong. So what are they seeing? Even we've talked about this last week was the petroglyphs and pictographs on rock walls. And it clearly looks like some sort of a very large, very big-footed, hairy creature that goes back hundreds of years, and yeah, I don't know. I don't know what to make of it. And I look at those and go, well, some of them look alien. So is that an alien? And I'm ready to believe that. So what about Bigfoot?
An open mind.
You got to have an open mind, and that's what I'm trying to keep. Yeah, animals in the wild evolved as hard to see and are distinct. Yeah, if you don't know what you're looking at, you walk right by them. Yeah, that's true. And I've seen those pictures. If you go out there's many Bigfoot Facebook pages out there, and there's one that I just saw it the other day, and it had a picture of a leopard laying down on a cliffside in amongst the rocks. And it said, I'm not going to put a circle around it because I want you to see how hard it is to find it. And it was hard to spot it there. It blended right in and hid very, very well. And how many of we have seen pictures like that? Oh yeah. RH negative blood. No way there isn't truth here. I know. I'm yeah.
Robot asked a question about Ape Canyon.
Uh-huh.
That was the incident. It's relatively well known. It was a group of miners in Ape Canyon, which is on the edge of Mount St. Helens, I believe. And the initial claim was that they were attacked, or their cabin was attacked by a group of Bigfoot. Later on, they fessed up that wasn't entirely. They weren't entirely innocent. They had tried to shoot at a Sasquatch that they had seen earlier in the day, and they regretted it later that night when Sasquatch attacked the cabin, throwing big rocks at it and things like that.
There was roof and stuff.
Yeah, no way that these guys could hit him, trying to shoot at him. So
yep. Just crazy. I mean, it truly is. I don't know. When you take all that kind of stuff like that, and is everybody just crazy? I can't say that they all are.
Right.
So
I got one for Mike real quick.
Mm-hmm.
Mike, I know we've talked about David Paulides before and missing persons. Is there any correlation based on the research that you've done between incidents of disappearance of persons and the frequency a possible Sasquatch has been seen in a specific area?
So I'll say I hope not,
okay.
Because the implication there is, and obviously, if someone's still around to tell their experience with Bigfoot, they survived it.
Yes.
The troubling part becomes then if Bigfoot wants to end you, it can end you in an instant.
Correct.
Right? And can drag you off and take you wherever they want to take you. So that's troubling. I try to keep a positive mindset, positive attitude. That I can only of all those stories that I've listened to, all the firsthand accounts, there's only 2 or 3 where someone was injured, and it appeared accidental. It wasn't intentional. They can be very, very scary, and traumatize folks, but they don't generally hurt them when clearly they could. They're incredibly fast. people struggle with describing how fast they are, and they move differently. They're because their
Yes.
feet are different, their legs are. I mean, they have a different type of motion.
Yep.
But then you go to that interdimensional question of, are they popping in and out? Is it a side effect of that? Maybe.
Hmm.
I mean, we need to really learn more about that interdimensional thing and how things go back and forth. And maybe it's accidental, maybe it's something else, or maybe something else is coming and taking people to wherever that other side is, whatever we call that. I don't know.
Mhm.
And that's where Bigfoot resides more of the time than in this side. I don't know. But it does seem like there's commonality. You start to hear more and more commonality about the way that they show up and
Yes.
disappear,
Hmm.
and how hard they are to find. And then you throw in that the missing 411 stuff. And David Politis has a very good video series on Bigfoot.
Yes, he does.
I think he's up to 17 episodes now. Very good information. And then the missing 411 stuff that he does. I think he's onto it. He's onto the fact that there's something going on. There's some connect, or he wouldn't be interested in those two topics.
Right.
Those are his two main topics, and I have to believe that there's something there. I just would prefer not to until I get better evidence or additional evidence.
I'm not
say
saying
that,
it's a negative correlation either.
Yeah.
It might be a very positive correlation. We just don't know. Is
Right.
the correlation negative or positive?
Right.
No one
I
knows.
think there's more to do. There is more relation to that. The disappearance is that the same thing for Bigfoot. Bigfoot disappears, right in front of people, like we saw in that thermal. Looks like it
Yep.
walked behind a wall.
Yep.
Is that the same thing that's happening to these people, either accidentally or intentionally?
Yep. There you go. Mike Allen is asking or
Yeah.
telling you about the triangle
Allen,
in Alaska.
Yep, Alan. Yeah, that's another whole rabbit hole to go down.
Is that where they went this season? I don't know. I'm not sure
Yeah, that'll be
exactly where they
interesting
went
to
in
see.
Alaska, but yeah.
Wow.
Jan asked if I was looking for Bigfoot behind me. I was looking around. No, I'm actually looking for a book. I thought I had it out here because I wanted to show it, but I bought when I was at Phenomenon right here. Oh, it's kind of orange, isn't it? It's supposed to be green, but my backdrop is hiding it. Anyway, Phenomenon last year, where I was talking to Dr. Mayer and Ronnie and Russell. I bought Russell's books. He had 2 books, and I was when I was reading the book, when I first started reading it, I thought it was a book about looking for Bigfoot and his research and all this kind of stuff. It wasn't. It was actually a novel, and it's about that very thing, about somebody being taken by, the first book is by a Bigfoot. This guy, it's just a story. A guy was in the woods and pulled a gun and tried to shoot it because it was confronting him, and he ended up shooting it in the hip. And then it threw him up against a tree, knocked him out, and took him. And he was off living with them for a while, kind of held captive. That's what the book was about. It wasn't what I was expected, but it's still a good book. So Russell's written a couple books. He's actually, the last I heard, one of his last interviews, he said he was releasing a third book, but it wasn't out quite yet. But so anyway, that's what I was looking for. I was looking for his book. I was going to show it, and I thought I had it sitting here close to me, but I don't. So sorry about that. Yeah, I do too, Vesta. I kind of feel protective, and that's kind of where we'll go down that path, that rabbit hole in a few minutes. That I'm getting ready to move this along here a little bit. But part of the show, the next thing that they get to is this right here, where they go on, they find Owen Peterson. And Owen Peterson is a gentleman who, as a kid, had an experience. His entire family had an experience, and he describes it on the show to Bryce. That's Bryce standing there with him, and he describes this to him. And he said that they kept it. Their mother told them not to speak a word of their experience of this Bigfoot type creature that showed up at their house at night when he was a kid in the living in the woods, and how it traumatized the entire family. And the sound that it made was very. He said he would never forget that. After his mother passed away, because she didn't want to be have it talked about while she was living. After she passed away, then he was watching Expedition Bigfoot, and they played that sound. And I've got a sample of it here. This is the actual sound that they were playing for him, and he said, yes, that was the sound. I'm going to play it real quick, and hopefully this isn't too loud, but I mean, tell me what you guys think of something that would make a sound like this. That's pretty wild. I mean, to me, it almost sounds like a person, but then again, I don't, but when he heard that sound, when Owen heard that, he goes, yes, that's the one. When he heard it,
Yeah.
he knew that he had to contact these guys and tell them about his experience as a kid.
Yeah, he reacted pretty strongly to that.
Yeah, he would. You could tell he looked pretty shook up.
And that's what I have said too, is that some of those calls, it does sound like someone could make those sounds. A human can make those sounds.
Right.
But as I've started to look more into some of the sound analysis that's done and the spectrograms of them, boy, they look completely different than anything I've seen. The human voice has many harmonics, and so there's multiple frequencies that our voice is actually coming out across, and those howls like that, whether it's the air raid sound, air raid siren, which is that one, kind of like an air raid siren, or the Ohio howl, they have a much different signature. And there's really, I think from what I've seen, for the most part, there's only 3 frequencies that howl is on. And you can look at any other animal, wolf, coyote, fox, anything else that could possibly make those sounds. And it looks completely different. Again, it looks on the spectrograph, you can see there's multiple harmonics that the Bigfoot call, for whatever reason, does not have. It's very limited, very focused, and so it again, the science behind that is very intriguing to me, and helps me believe that there's more to the sound. There's less risk of it being a hoax, or if it's hoaxed, you can tell.
Yeah. Yep. And the infrasound that they find within it too.
Yeah, the infrasound below frequency.
Week, yeah, absolutely.
Anything below 20 hertz is below our audible range and can have some physical side effects.
Here's robots asking another question for you.
Yes.
Mike. Yeah. Claim Bigfoot mimicking human sounds. Yep.
The baby cries, that one is a little bit concerning, because it does sound very much like a very small human child crying. I don't know if it's coincidental, if they're trying to do something else, if it's a small Bigfoot or Sasquatch, but it's often done, and it's kind of considered a lure. And if it's a lure, that's a problem. That's bad. Because they know that we're going to come. But yeah, they mimic sounds, although they're from what I hear, they're not actually all that good at it. People will say, yeah, I heard some drunk guy trying to sound like an owl, but he screwed up the end of it every time he did it. So they do mimic other sounds. Absolutely. I've heard a gentleman that would call to his wife every evening when he got home. She'd be out, in the back 40 in the garden. And, later on that night, they heard very similar to his voice, her name being called from the woods. So clearly they do mimic.
Yep. Yeah, that's very interesting. Yeah, there is a lot of animals that do produce the infrasound, and it's an attempt that it startles fear into you, or maybe even a lack of motion. You become stunned by it in such a way that they can then either escape or they can harm you because you are stunned. But it's like they showed in that one episode, they showed the growl of a tiger. And the infrasound that was bedded in that would just chill you to your bones really, really badly. one of the things that the guys came upon, the team, this was Mariah and Ronnie, came upon this little thing here that was in the middle of the river that they were traveling down. And when I saw this thing, immediately I said, "Oh, it looks like a fish trap." And I think that's what this was. And they went over and they took a good look at it to see if they could figure out, exactly what it was. But yeah, I mean, it's, no other animal in the woods is going to be able to make something like this besides a human or something with opposable thumbs. To be able to pick up the sticks, break them off, and shove them into the ground like this. No other creature is going to be able to make something like that. Ronnie immediately went to, yeah, that's Bigfoot. Bigfoot made that. And of course, Mariah, the look on her face was kind of like, it could have been made by somebody that happened to be camping out there. Who knows? But I mean, is it possible that is it possible that it could have been made by a Bigfoot trying to get some lunch?
Yeah, I mean, we don't know exactly where they are, but we know that they're pretty remote. So they're usually pretty surprised if anything appears to be human made or human related. I agree. There's no reason to think that wasn't built by a human,
right?
Because there's nothing overly impressive about it, other than it's if it's not us, if it's a Sasquatch, clearly, again, John, to your earlier question of intelligence, clearly they have intelligence if they're using sticks to create a trap to catch fish later.
Yes.
Not immediate. That's forethought, foresight, and intent there. So,
yeah, Jen. I think Barbara asked, "Is that a fish trap?" I think that's exactly what this is, a fish trap. There's one little hole getting into it and no other way to get out. And the hole is on the upstream side, so the fish would go into it, then it get stuck in it and not be able to get out. And then you can go back later and reach in there and grab him and pull him out. So, if it was a Bigfoot that made this thing, he obviously knows a way to capture fish. But they're like Mike just said, there's no reason to believe that a human didn't make this. There's no evidence to say that it was made by anything but a human being. So we just don't know. And then Ronnie said something else about the indigenous peoples. If they came upon something like this, or an area where they thought that it was a Bigfoot area, a feeding area, they would avoid that area out of respect to say, okay, that's his area, we're staying away from it. That I can see. That I kind of would agree with him on, but whether to claim that this was for sure a Bigfoot trap or a trap for a Bigfoot created for fish, I don't know. But it was still an interesting find in the middle of this river. No doubt about that.
Yeah, there have been sightings of Bigfoot in water fishing, but they're fast enough that they don't need a trap.
Right.
They can grab the fish straight out of the water.
Yep. Reach in and
again, that being near water and being in water, that's unique. That's not necessarily a primate behavior.
Right. Yeah, his sound is, so Dina was asking if your volume when you're speaking is kind of fades in and out at times. So it is a little bit. Yep. It's not just you, Dina. Yeah, I'm hearing it also. And then Bryce was down. He's working down by this lake in later episodes, and we'll get to the next episodes as we go along here. We'll start talking about them because somebody mentioned a shadow that they saw. Yes, that's coming up. We'll be talking about that in a future episode here as we move along through these. But again, there's a really neat lake, and I think Bryce actually puts a remote down in this lake as well. And gets a look at some stuff down there. Bryce this was actually taken the night before when Russell was wearing the ghillie suit, and this is where he spotted the fawn. But one thing that I wanted to mention about this here also, a couple things that was mentioned. Russell had said something, and this is kind of how I look at when I go out. If I'm going to go out, and I will, and I'm going to go out and do some investigation of my own, and I'll take cameras with me and all that kind of stuff. But I like the idea, and what Russell said is that whatever sits still sees whatever is moving. And that's my look at that. I would rather sit still without any light, without any flashlight or anything like that, sit still and see what I can see that is moving, with a thermal camera, which I have a thermal camera and that sort of thing, to be able to watch and look around. When you see that, or you hear movement, you can look in the thermal camera to see if you're picking up anything. And, it's one of those things that you don't want to go out alone. Just in case.
Right.
You always want to have a buddy with you somewhere nearby that you can talk to or have some help. But I like that idea. And when I see these guys walking around, especially with a flashlight, I'm thinking to myself, and again, I don't know. I don't know anything about hunting Bigfoot other than what I've seen on TV, but the walking around with a flashlight or having some kind of a light with you, you're telling them, I mean, they probably know you're already there anyway.
Mm-hmm.
If you're walking around, especially if you're walking around. So your chances of seeing them, I think, is very limited. But yes, indeed, Tom. I don't need to outrun
the slowest.
I just need to outrun you. But so anyway, that always kind of gets me when they're walking around with a flashlight. I mean, that flashlight can be seen for a long, long way. And you're giving away the fact that you're out there looking around in the woods with a flashlight. So they're going to stay away from you. I don't know. But another interesting point that I caught when and they all said it about the same time was during this night. And any of you that have been out in the woods at night doing this kind of thing, and you hear the crickets, you hear the different things that are going on, and all of a sudden, dead silence. Nothing is making a sound. It becomes dead silent. All of it, just like flipping off a switch. Now, what do you think causes something like that? I mean, because they all mentioned it on this episode, right? When they were out there, and it was just like everything went dead silent all of a sudden.
Jeff, traditionally, it's a predator.
Yeah.
Generally, yes. That's
there's something dangerous. That I remember somebody asked about that. The animals stopping making noise is one thing. But when the insects stop, that's a whole nother level. Somebody asked Caleb Bench on Skinwalker if he ever heard any scary sounds, and he said it's not the scary sounds that I'm bothered by; it's when everything goes dead quiet.
Yeah,
that's when you got to worry. Yeah, I don't know what triggers that, but that's very, very common. Commonly reported is. Just before something happens or, stuff starts getting thrown at them or something like that, some kind of interaction with the Bigfoot is everything goes dead quiet.
Well, let me ask you this. Infrasound or any sort of sound, would that also silence insects?
Oh, very, very likely. Maybe.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't know what level of frequency they would react to, but infrasound is so low, it still creates a vibration.
Correct.
So they may be reacting to the vibration, even if they can't hear it, or if they can't hear it, they still may sense that vibration, and that may cause them to stop. Would be a really good thing to look into.
Yeah,
it's curious.
And I've heard that. I've had that experience being out in the woods at night. And then all of a sudden, and not moving. If you're walking along, like somebody had mentioned there, if you go walking along and all of a sudden when you approach, they stop in that area where you are. But if you're sitting absolutely still and you're listening to all of that, and then all of a sudden it stops, that means something else came very near and made it all stop. But they all heard it on the show at the same time. Everybody, Russell mentioned it. Bryce mentioned it. Ronnie mentioned it. It went absolutely silent in this whole little valley right here that they were working in the target area there. It's just that's creepy, really creepy. The last picture I had was just one that they showed. They had displayed it on the show, and it's the eye shine. I grabbed this because of the eye shine, and this is an infrared eye shine, coming. So even not only would a flashlight or something shine on it and get that eye shine back from a creature or an animal, but also an infrared camera can do the same thing, even though, and that, we don't know what made this particular fawn look at in the direction of the light, if somebody made a noise and whatever. But they just showed this, but it's that eye shine that you look for. If you can capture that. Now, somebody was saying that a Bigfoot does not have the eye shine. But again, that's something there's no proof of that either way, whether it does or not. But again,
Yeah. It seems like uh, the reports are kind of split.
Yep.
Whether they either do have eye shine, don't have eye shine, or have actually self illuminated eyes, that the eyes actually glow for reasons we clearly don't understand. So yeah, I hear a mix.
Yep. Yeah, Kat, that's interesting that you mentioned about an earthquake. Yeah, I had a cockatiel when I lived in Southern California, and on two separate occasions, it started acting weird, hanging upside down in its cage. It was hanging upside down, wings out, acting all weird. Never seen it. And then moments later, an earthquake came. It felt the vibrations before we had any indication of it, before we felt them or heard them. That bird did. Twice on two separate occasions that happened. I remember looking at the bird going, wow, he's acting weird. What's that all about? Look at him. Oh, you see that? And then all of a sudden, an earthquake came. So yeah, they can definitely pick up on that stuff.
Yep.
And also barometric changes as well.
Yeah.
Many animals changing the weather, changing the barometric pressures, and the animals react in a certain way.
Yep, absolutely. So yeah, interesting stuff. And this was like the opener episode of season 3 as they were going through these things. And we're going to go through, we were trying to see just how many there were in season 3, but again, we're going to try to finish these up. We're going to do it every Thursday night, as long as Mike and John can hang out, be it with every Thursday. It's a hard commitment to make sometimes. But we're going to go through these season 3 every Thursday night at 7:30, and we're going to continue this. And then when they come out with season 4, then we're going to be talking about those right after. They'll be on Sunday. We'll talk about them on Thursday as they go through season 4. And I'm working on getting Dr. Maria Mayer and Ronnie LeBlanc and also Russell Accord. I haven't talked to Bryce yet. I do have contact information for the other 3. So we're going to try to get them on the show. Also Jeff Meldrum. I'd love to hear from him. Very fascinating man that has a lot of good information. And I've seen some names that people have popped up. There was one earlier here that somebody said, you should get so-and-so on your show. And I meant to write that down. If you could, whoever that was that mentioned a name to have on the show, if you could pop that name back up. I'm going to scroll back, see if I can find it. But if you would pop that name back up, whoever that was that mentioned that, because I would like to try to reach out. And on the other part of that also is that I would like to get some of you on the show. Or you can call in. You can do it through the Discord channel if you want, or you can call in. Is it Ken Gerhardt? Okay. Because I would like to hear some of your stories. I had, like I told you at the beginning of the show, I have not had a experience where I could say, oh, that might have been a Bigfoot. Nothing like that. I've seen animals. I've seen bears, deer, all kinds of different bobcat. I've seen all kinds of different animals in the woods, but never anything that I could have said, oh, wow, that might have been a Bigfoot. Never. But there's a lot of people who have, and I would love to hear your stories. So we'll be reaching out to folks and having you asking people to come on. You have my contact information. It's JFree906@gmail.com. The email's down below in the description. So look at that and send me something if you'd like to try to, come on the show. Let me know. So what do you think, guys? Final thoughts on this particular episode. The pheromone thing, they said they got good success, but I didn't really see much come from it. But,
Yeah,
what do you think?
I think the pheromone, maybe it took longer for that to take effect than an instant reaction that night.
Yeah.
Because they definitely had, as the season progresses, there's a lot more activity. So maybe it just took time for that to actually take effect. Maybe it had no effect. I don't know. But it was something to try.
There's a question out there right out of there for again, Robot.
Oh boy.
He's got some good ones.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that was going down a rabbit hole.
Yeah. So yeah, Bigfoot is everywhere, right? I mean, there's sightings all over the United States, and I'm going to just focus on that, okay? And there are military installations all across the United States. So guess what? There's also sightings on military installations, on military bases. There are a number of reports in the Sasquatch Chronicles that podcast that I listen to, where people have run into these on military bases, and unfortunately, there's cases where they have shot and killed them, and sometimes more than one. Was a male and female at one point in one of the stories, and lots of security, lots of sworn to secrecy, top clearance type stuff, and bodies just go away. There's no way that the government doesn't have some level of knowledge. Just based on what I've heard, there's too many folks that are veterans or are still in the military. They tend to be a little bit more careful and aren't as willing to go on to the show and talk about it. But there's no way the government doesn't know something about that, about Sasquatch, Bigfoot, because they have to deal with it on basis. So yeah, I think that's probably a given. Like I said, I don't know to what extent. Is it a huge cover up? I don't know. I just know that veterans have come forward and said, "Oh no, I had an experience on a base. We had to go out. We had to help try and track something down, or we were told, oh, by the way, while you're guarding this area, there may be some weird, strange experiences, or you may have some odd things happen." So they know ahead of time even that there's certain spots that may have habituation type scenario where they're there quite a bit.
Yeah. Christy, I don't know if it's so much about people not handling the info. I think it's more along the lines if they knew and they made something like that public, that people would go out in the woods and start hunting them down in a much bigger rate than they already do. And I think that's the part that I would be afraid of. I'm kind of like the Vesta's idea of not harming them. If they do exist, I would like to coexist in a peaceful manner. I'd love to, go out and if they do exist, again, I'll say that, but if they do, to meet one and to have a peaceful encounter with one. So I look at it that way, and that's the way, I think that we should approach this. I think everybody should approach it that way. To think that, oh, let's go out with our guns and dogs and hunt it down and shoot it and kill it, and then we got proof of this body, that I would rather not say a word about an encounter than I would to come back with some sort of evidence like that from killing one or whatever. I just don't, I'm not, I used to hunt when I was younger, and I don't hunt anymore. If I needed to for food, I would, but otherwise I just don't like the idea of having to kill something like that again. Yeah, they want a Bigfoot rug. Yeah. Cat, I guess. Yeah. Yeah, why not just coexist? I mean, that's what the native, you look at some of the the word passed down through generations of indigenous people said that they used to have, interactions with them on a peaceful nature.
Yeah.
So why not continue that? I think they're more afraid of us now, of what may happen. And that's one of the biggest reasons why they stay hidden now as it goes along. So wow, good discussion tonight again. This is awesome. I really I knew this was going to be a great topic to get into, and again, as I mentioned, I'm using this as my way to kind of research this, and that's why I want to have people come on and talk about their experiences, because I want to collect this information as we go along. These videos are out on YouTube. They will stay out on YouTube as long as YouTube allows me to keep them there, so we can go back and revisit. But I want to start collecting a log of experiences and discussions like this with all of you, and John and Mike. Man, I just love it when you guys are participating. And Mike is our fountain of knowledge here. He's the researcher in all of this stuff. But we definitely have, like I said, reach out to me, email me if you like to come on the show and talk about this or your own experiences. Get a hold of me. So we'll do it there. Final thoughts, Mike and John?
No, that'd be fantastic. Like I said, I don't have any direct experience. I'm just going off of what I've logged in my head with the several, 1,000 or 1,500 different firsthand encounters, reading up on Dr. Meldrum's book and or David Politis's Bigfoot series. I'm collecting lots of information and I remember a lot. So I would love to hear firsthand accounts because there's always so much information, and that's where you get that the commonality. You start to see those trends, see those things that everybody or is common between multiple different experiences, and then there's always some outliers, and you learn something new, and maybe it's something different. I would love to have folks on that have had experience.
Yep, me too. John, what do you think?
I'm just like any other piece of research. Is it repeatable? Are there patterns? And can we start tracking those patterns down? I would like to see more about the Bigfoot trails and the debris field. I find that fascinating. And mapping that out. And is there specific ways the trees are being broken or the debris is being broken? What height is the breakage occurring? There's so much you can do with just tracing patterns of behavior of these creatures, if these creatures exist. It's just so much. So, repeatable.
Yep, exactly. Yep.
Just
And that's what you gain from talking to people. So, all right. Well, thank you folks for being here with us again tonight. And again, next Thursday, 7:30, same bat channel. We're going to talk about same Bigfoot channel. We're going to talk about it some more. We'll be talking about episode number 2 of episode number 2 of season 3. We're going to dig into it a little deeper. Is he really? Wow.
No one has yet hunted me for my pelt. So,
or have they?
Yeah. Well, that's who needs that?
Sorry. I said, yeah, Phenomicon. I got my Phenomicon shirt. I'll be out there again this year. So any of you that might be going to Phenomicon this year, make sure you stop by, and I'll be hanging out by the Skinwalker Ranch booth until they throw me out. So, but thanks folks for being here with us tonight. We'll catch you next time right here on JFree906. Good night, everybody.